everybody. Hi, Sandra Otten with ReasonableDiet.com here. I am a professional motivation expert, a diet and wellness coach, and recently I've decided, you know what, you need a little bit more from me. You need some cooking lessons too, so I'm inviting you here into my kitchen and showing you some really simple ways to do things that I just sort of take for granted because my mom taught me to cook very young. And she was a good cook and an intuitive cook. And so I just sort of learned how to be comfortable in the kitchen. And I've invented a lot of things. I've adapted a lot of things. And I know how to do things low-cal, and I know how to do things the easy way. Those are my main two things. Well, fast, easy, cheap, low-cal. I'm all about all of that. So today, that's why I am talking to you about winter squash. Winter squash are low-cal. They are very, very good for you, very healthy, and they're cheap at certain times of year. You can get this little thing for a quarter. I picked up my butternut squash for 50 cents and my acorn squash for a quarter. And you know, a lovely thing is that squash keep for a very long time. So in the fall, you can buy them and store them. If you have a basement, they'll keep all the way through to next summer. So you could have a squash or two every week all winter long for about 10 bucks. Can you imagine the craziness of that? So that's what I do, and it's a really great staple in my house. I love them. I've learned to cook with them, and I'm going to share that with you today. All right, so the main thing is that different than sometimes how you hear people handling squash is they tell you to peel it. Peeling squash it's dangerous and it's hard. It's just they just don't. Well, that one doesn't seem too hard. Well, I'm not getting it all the way. Anyway, you can imagine peeling around every one of these ridges and peeling, you know, it is hard to do. So I just don't even bother doing it. Now I know that roasted squash cut up in little bitty peeled sections in like a pan of roasted vegetables would be really tasty and excellent. But to make soup, to just have it just on the table on an everyday dinner, I just wouldn't bother doing it that way. It's too hard, dangerous, and it's hard. Why make things difficult? Why? That's not for me. I don't complicate things. All right, so this is a spaghetti squash, which I am going to roast, and I'm going to tell you about spaghetti squash. Some marketing genius had the idea to call it spaghetti squash because when it's cooked, the strands of it will fork out of here like spaghetti. And so I will go into a recipe using spaghetti squash, but I treat that a little bit different than I do the rest of the winter squash. This is a carnival squash. This is an acorn squash, often has more orange on it than that. This is, yes, a pumpkin. That's right, very good. And then the butternut squashes look something like this. They're always this color. Sometimes they have a bigger neck up at the top, but they look something like that. Got that one started already. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I am going to make a soup, and then we're just going to have some lovely butternut squash that I have seasoned before I bake it. And so it's going to be baked with the seasoning on it. And let me just tell you about it first. So what I did was I cut it in half, and then I scooped out the seeds just like, oh, here's one. Good. I remembered I saved that one for you so I could show you how easy it is to scoop out the seeds and the innards, which is just like this. And when you do this, you'll want to take the junk. And now some people really like roasting pumpkin seeds, and then if you do, you can roast these seeds just the same. However, I find that's a pain. I don't think it's worth it. It's a lot of work to get these separated from all the junk, and it's okay, but that's not what we're about today. Okay, so that was that easy to take the seeds out of this butternut squash, and it usually is that easy. Then what I did was I patted it down with just a stick of butter. Let me just show you how I did that. So I would take some butter and just rub it on there like such. There you go. And then spiced it with turmeric and cinnamon and nutmeg. You could also use cloves. You could also use curry powder. But for what I did today, I used a little bit of turmeric, cinnamon, and nutmeg. That's what I did on this one. On this one, I'm going to bake it without any spices, and the same with the acorn squash. I'm going to bake them without any spices because I'm going to make a soup out of them that's flavored with red curry powder, and coconut milk is going to be in it, so it's kind of got its own flavor all of its own. All right, so very simply, I'm going to finish cutting up the carnival, finish cutting up another acorn. I'm going to bake. I'm not going to do the pumpkin today just because I don't have room for it in my pan. But I am going to get these into this roasting pan, and then we're going to pop it in the oven. I've got the oven preheated to 400 degrees. I think it's going to take about 40 minutes probably, but I'm going to keep an eye on them so that they don't get too toasty on the top and burnt on the top. But we do want it to be forkable, so sort of like how you would want a sweet potato if you were going to eat a sweet potato. That's the texture that we'll be going for, and I'll be looking for them to be done in about 40 minutes. I'll double check that. Okay, we'll be back then. Whoops, you know what? I forgot to show you actually how to cut up a butternut squash. So I don't want to be remiss in doing that. I did show you how to take the seeds out, but I didn't show you how to cut up the squash. So I pulled another one out of my basement, and let me just wash it off a minute because often they look like this. Yes, they do, because I bought these from a farmer where they were growing on the ground. I love it when I can do that. It doesn't happen very often because, believe it or not, here in the land of plenty in central Illinois, we do not have that many farmers selling their goods. More and more, we're getting back to it, but like Michigan and Indiana have tons of that, but we are so monoculture with our crops here, corn and soybeans, it's really horrendous. So all you do is get your big chef's knife, find a place to go in deep and start cranking it down, and you're going to try to just cut that baby in half, but you're usually going to not get it right in half, and that's okay. It's not that big a deal. As long as you get it somewhere close to half. And then you just sort of make a scoring line across the top of it. So it's kind of scored. You're not trying to, do anything super feet here. But over here, you also have where you started it. So you can kind of go in over there on the half. Get it scored also. All right. Now, I'm ready to do the final thing where I'm just going to put it in and try to take it down. There we go. Now might need to be cut a little bit more. Yeah, see how it's coming apart there really easily? Good. Let's pry it apart and say really easily. Is it going to come apart really easily? Well, I might get a little bit more on this side. So you see these are the butternut squash do have different shapes. This other one was much more pear-like, and this one is more long-necked. Oh! I screwed up. Right here on film. Well, you know what? Oh well. Alright, so that's good. It's not as pretty as I wanted it to be, right? But again, no big deal. Go with the flow around here. All right, so then you take the seeds out as such, as I already showed you this, right? I did. And I'm just gonna, oh, I know what I didn't show you. I showed you the butter, but I didn't show you that another option, well, it's a good thing I came back and forgot, is that I spray with olive oil. So instead of using butter, you can use spray. Now some people would use PAM. I'm trying my best to avoid that aerosol nightmare. And then so I bought one of these little misters, so just pumps up, and then I can spray the top of it as such, and we are good to go on that. So I need to get these seeds out, and then I'll spray this one also. Spray my little half one here. Oops, don't shake it up, that's not what you do. Here. You pump it up. Pump it up. There we go. All right, so sprayed with olive oil, ready to go then. So some of them I did with butter, some of them with olive oil, depending on whether we were going to be putting it in this soup or not, which that's my choice on this one, I think. Okay, good. Now I'm going to get these in the oven and be back in 40 minutes. They smell so good. There's that. Okay, this is after 40 minutes, and I should not be letting all this heat out of the oven actually without checking them and making sure that they are done. Oh yeah, they are. It's about perfectly, I would say. Let me show you the butternut squash. Two is fork tender, just like that. Smells so good. All right. So spaghetti squash, I'm just going to talk to you about it for a minute and give you some ideas. It is, as I said, kind of a little bit more like a zucchini because it has a little bit more water in it. So what I'm doing right now is just loosening all those strands in the shell. The shell is baked kind of hard, as you can see. It's retaining its shape. I'm going to just dump it out. Now you can make spaghetti squash in a microwave, and I like the flavor of it a little bit better. I like the flavor of almost anything better in the oven than in a microwave, but you can see that. I can give you a little bit better close-up of this. You can see the strands in there, right? Perhaps? Can you see those? Now this would be good. Honestly, it would be good with a little bit of butter and salt and pepper on it. However, more locale, you'll want to put some spaghetti squash or some spaghetti sauce on it and use it that way. And I've got some other ideas too, and there will be a handout, Spaghetti Squash 101, that goes with this video, so I hope you'll be able to enjoy that. But just to say that this is a little bit different than the rest of the winter squash. It just in the texture of it, and you know, I said it's bland, but it's not really bland. It's got kind of a buttery flavor, just like it is. You know, it's kind of good. Of course, I'm kind of hungry. Okay, well, never mind about having to do all that other stuff with it. This is really yummy. I'm used to actually making it primarily in the microwave, and let me just say, I don't know if it's this particular squash that's better, or how hungry I am, but it's good. It's good just like it is, I swear. I don't have butter on it or salt and pepper or anything. Okay, that's enough. What else? Well, that's going to cool, or I'm going to eat it, and we're not going to deal with that anymore. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to make a soup.